Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm hanging out with a nerd. And today we are going to be doing some world building. This is the second live chat we've done on Sundays. And what we're going to be handling is the Thri-kreen Empire, which is an ancient empire that's been destroyed long ago, longer than most recorded history. And it just has the ruins left over. And there's a giant stabilized chaos storm kind of in the center of it, the largest chaos storm on Ulfgania, which is our world, the Mega Earth, in the setting Chimes of Discordia for Nerdarchy. So that's the beginning. That was a mouthful. You mute it.
I'm muted again. We are as far as the primary. Hey Jan, the primary stuff we're going to be going after right now is, as I was mentioning to Nate right before we got on, thri-kreen are Forgotten Realms, and that means that you can't just first of all, you can't crank out your own setting, and second of all, if you use thri-kreen, you have to do DM's Guild, which you're not allowed to crank out your own setting for. So we have to come up with some other thing to inhabit the wastes. So tell me, and like you guys, as always, I know very little.
Just saying, Kienata, raining on my parade. Raining on my Thri-kreen Waste parade.
We have to go after it at least a little bit, right? We have to come up with something else.
I agree.
They can still be Psionicists if you want.
Okay, so what I like about, let me list the ways I like the Thri-kreen. I like that they're giant bug people that have alien mindsets. I like that they're psionic. I think it's pretty cool that they have their own crazy weapons, and they're made out of like their own saliva, like crystallized saliva, and mixed in with other things. I like, did I mention I like their cool weapons, and that they're psionic, and that they're bug people. So I mean, kind of stretched thin on making. I don't want to make them mammals. I don't want to make them reptiles. I would be okay with making them reptiles, but I'd really just like an insectoid race.
Okay, so we want bugs. This is what we want.
I want bug people.
Well, James Leslie says, I thought Thri-kreen realms were Dark Sun. They are Dark Sun, but they were actually Forgotten Realms first. And technically, isn't Dark Sun supposed to be like alternate future Dark Sun?
Axoneer, I really like the Kreen Thri. I think we can go with it. Oh, is my mic? People are saying my mic's a little low.
It's a little low. Crank yourself up.
Cranking it up. All right. Hopefully that's better.
Hobbs, he really is the patron saint of Psionics. He's going to have his way.
Psionics for everyone.
So okay. So first of all, we have a variety. There's tons of questions to ask here. All right. So you said it's the Chaos Wastes.
Yes.
So let's start with the dirt and build up from there. The Chaos Wastes. So we're talking a big desert, a tundra, a volcanic wasteland. Was the entire place burned into ash? Like, what does this place look like?
All right. So I guess let's go in and just do a recap of what the Chaos Storms are in our world. Basically, they're unbound magic run amok is what I would consider them. And one of our world's problem is that every once in a while, the gods kind of have to strip the world of things that have gotten out of hand. And because they're not omniscient, they're not omnipotent. They're in their own thing. They're just basically like super powered humans in a way, the deities. So they've got their flaws. They've got their failures. And they tend to have a lot of failures over time that as they try and fix things and craft things anew. So very recently, we can say that the dragon gods were banished in the history of the world. The dragon gods were banished along with a lot of their craziness and all this other kind of stuff, which lowered the magic of the world. But it also kind of created a ripple. And that ripple kind of swirls off and creates these chaos storms, where all kinds of weird stuff can happen. So the biggest and largest and earliest, probably the first chaos storm, happened in the middle of the Thri-kreen Empire a very long time ago, and it destroyed the Thri-kreen Empire, or whatever we're going to put in Scarab people. That could be a possibility. I kind of like that idea. So
Thank you for the host, Shadazar.
cool. Thank you very
Go
much.
ahead.
So whatever we replace thri-kreen with, I would like them to have had a tremendously large empire that spanned hundreds and hundreds of miles on one of the continents in Chimes of Discordia, on Alfgania. And
Okay.
it doesn't matter which continent. Right now, I have it on a spot, but I could move it, or we could kind of like figure out what's around it instead. So it's there's a large forest to the right of the waste, and then there's my merchant circle, Holds of the Mordain campaigns happening, like 3-4 weeks away, travel wise, from the chaos where the chaos wasteland starts. So the edges of the chaos storm have a lot of desert and nastiness, and like I'm thinking there's going to be all kinds of like aberrant creatures, altered creatures from other
With
dimensions, tentacles, hard carapaces, really large psionic creatures. So it's kind of like where Psionics happens in Alfgania, but it's also kind of hemmed in, and you have these watchtowers, the watchtowers of the Thri-kreen Empire, which used to be pointed outward, but are now controlled by psionic beings, and the few remaining creatures from the empire, from the original empire, like the descendants of those creatures, they would be in there, and they're basically using psionic powers to stop the chaos waste from either expanding, or the chaos storm that is still happening sometimes and showing up within the chaos waste, from that chaos storm to just maul the rest of the land outside. So they're kind of, they're watchtowers against destruction.
Okay, several questions, and welcome everyone who just showed up in YouTube. How you doing? So, several questions. First, chaos storm. But
Yes.
I don't really have a sense of a chaos storm. The only sense of a chaos storm I have is I'm hanging out in Warhammer 40K, or I'm hanging out in Warhammer Fantasy, and there's a chaos storm. So what is a chaos storm in this setting?
Okay, so chaos storm in this setting could probably best be described as, magic run amok,
Mm-hmm.
and that can have all different kinds of unintended consequences. It could remake the world, the section of the world that it rolls through. We have prospectors who actually, after a chaos storm goes through, will try and harvest the things that come out of it, because it could turn all the trees into crystalline minerals. It could turn, it could. One of the chaos storms that destroyed Rylar, with a being, there was a powerful being that I might guess was unleashed, and recently there's this like kind of crummy den of thieves town called Rylar, which is no more because it was destroyed by this creature coming out, as well as the chaos storm that followed it. And what ended up happening was there was this coating of yellowy wax that kind of floated and adhered to the town.
You always do gross stuff, dude.
I didn't do it. It was Dave. Blame Nerdarchus Dave. But it was like this yellowy slime wax that stuck to everything. And then sometimes the people would be consumed by the wax, and then they would be these kind of spirits within the wax that continued to move. So basically, it killed pretty much everybody there that couldn't escape, and it did that creepy wax thing. So
so the chaos storm, and I know this is probably going to be a very silly sounding question to ask about a chaos storm, but what is the predictability of it? Because the predictability of this giant ball of ether energy that does weird things, it's what is the predictability of the chaos storm? Because that largely determines the survivability of things that live in or near where it affects stuff.
Well, for us on the East Coast, it's kind of, we think about the hurricanes and stuff that are happen in Florida and on the East Coast of the United States. And when that storm starts way out in the ocean, we go, well, it looks like it might hit the tip of Florida. It might go on the west coast of Florida. It might go on the east coast of Florida. And then suddenly we get slammed with it in New Jersey. And we're like, well, a week ago we thought we were going to have sunny days here, and now like my electricity's out for a week.
Okay,
So
so it can be far-reaching. What's the survivability like for someone? Say someone like we have, you and I are out in the wastes prospecting, and a storm hits. Is there any probability that you and I are going to be able to take shelter or make our way out of the wastes before we're turned into wax people, or you know what I mean? Like what's our chance?
or slain and reincarnated immediately.
Yeah, exactly. Were you just dead? Yeah, I think I was dead too, but I'm here now, so I guess we just go with it.
And you've got a horse's butt now.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, looks like I'm a centaur. Hmm?
So what are our odds of survivability?
Okay, so one of the things with and Axoneer hits on it in the chat is maybe the chaos storm is contained by psionic towers. That's actually how it's contained, but that's also how you can kind of ward yourself away from it. So psionics are going to have the really nice position in our world of being basically, it can kind of influence, kind of like how a wizard can influence the sphere of annihilation. You know, there's a chance that you can like push it around and move it. So I think psionics will be able, especially people that go out into the chaos wastes, are most likely going to be from those towers, and they're going to have ways of kind of warding off either the worst effects of the chaos storms, or being able to take kind of like a shelter, almost like if you use Liamin's tiny hut, you can use a psionic ability or psionic crystal formation that will kind of shield you from the worst brunt of it.
A tiny little psionic umbrella.
Yes.
For the craziness of the storm. Man, you would see some stuff if you hung out in a storm with a bubble around you.
Yes, you'll see some stuff.
I had the strangest day.
Imagine trying to sleep through that because you need to get your 8 hours in.
Yeah, Bobicus, I think that probably answered your question reasonably well. Lightning rods protect from lightning by drawing it. Could psionics do something like that?
Oh, that's a good idea. So we can say protection from the storm.
Mm.
And then
Nate does love psionics.
I do.
He absolutely adores psionics.
I do. It's pretty
He's
obvious.
the last person on the planet that actually like now.
It's not true. It's not true.
Wilder Smith, what's up, buddy?
So a lightning rod type thing.
Yeah, some form of lightning rod. I imagine there's got to be some dark side of the force guy who's like, I want to use the energy of these crazy storms to do nefarious things. So is there any precedent for someone trying to use the energy of the storms to do anything with it?
Well, I think that the NPCs have messed around with it a little bit in our world so far, but I would say that no one. I mean, we could kind of hash out that a little bit today. I'd like to kind of think to talk about it, because that's definitely an angle I'd like to do. And I would say, so yeah, sure, certainly, some way. Well, I mean, you figure if you can have some way of warding it off, you could have some way of corralling it.
Right.
You know, it'd be like a giant crystalline kind of structure that kind of channels a chaos storm, like kind of weird random gun that just lays it out.
I was kind of imagining like several psionicists like all standing near some towers or something, all funneling the energy into a thing or some kind of creation. Maybe they have like because for me, I immediately think like, well, we're going to build giant mechanical automata and we're going to fill them with energy from the chaos waste, and we send out the psionicists and funnel the energy in, and now we have these giant metal golems that walk around.
They got banished with the dragon gods, by the way.
Oh,
sorry, you missed it. We'll have to do a way back machine version of world building, which I will do, but because I want to play a giant mech fighting dragon servitors. But that's a tale for another time.
Emiliano Garcia said like gravitational lensing. Exactly. We're gonna float that juice right to where we need it and build giant metal monsters to take over the world. So all right. So we have the crazy storms. We have a reasonable fencing system built around them that I
Yes.
assume is at least fairly well protected by the kingdoms that abut the chaos wastes.
Well, really, no one really messes with the place because it's nasty. So it's one of those things where it's another nasty place like Crutcher's Belt, pretty much.
Yeah.
You've got to
Yeah.
really want something in that place to go into it.
It's got to be super, super important.
So the way I usually introduce it in my games is they need something from the psionicists in the towers. So they go to them and they ask for something, and they're like, "Oh, well, we need some more crystals to charge our defense system for dealing with the chaos storm in the center of this world and the center of this empire. So, go get them, go fetch us some, and then we'll give you, and then we'll do something for you." So basically, first way they get introduced into the chaos waste is usually to get a fetch quest when they need some kind of psionic assistance.
So when we're talking about these towers, we're saying the tower is enough for one person to live there. Are there a bunch of people living in them? Like, are they huge? Small?
Okay, so the one I've got right now is called the Tower of the tohr-kreen, or the Claw of the Thri-kreen, it could be said. So
okay.
Tower or Claw. But again, we'll have
Clar.
to.
Okay, and this is the psionicists that work in these towers were previous to us reimagining our bug people.
Yes, because
Okay,
originally I had these towers made out of the crystalline stuff that the thri-kreens make their weapons out of. So it was just a giant tower made out of basically like a hive with these three towers coming off a center tower.
Okay.
So it looks like a giant, basically it looked like a giant like claw sticking out of the ground, made out of this crystalline material.
James Leslie said you need 15 cubic pounds of emendrite crystal from the waste for your focus. Off you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have bug people. They constructed massive crystalline hives, towers, whatever we'd like to call them. We only know that they build crystalline hives and have psionic abilities. We had tons of very standard issue insect suggestions. Ants are awesome. Termites are awesome. The Scarab idea was quite interesting. Attack on the Wookiees. I have no idea what you're talking about, Michael Swan. But if you'd like to talk about Wookiees, maybe we can do that sometime. Anyway, so we know the basics about what we want these bug people to be. And I guess if we're going to put more energy into trying to set up the setting, we could just leave them thri-kreen for the time being. It's really up to you.
Yeah, you know what? How about if people are cool with doing the Monster Mash on Thursday, making the player race, as well as maybe we could start that. It's not really a Monster Mashup, but it would help me out. Centipede people.
Centipede people is interesting. Super creepy,
yes,
but interesting. I can get behind that. Okay, so we need to come up with some kind of convincing way that they are building these structures. Are they excreting? Gross, dude.
They choose some plants like aloe vera or whatever is in some cactus. They chew it up, and they produce this saliva, and the saliva is like hot glue gun. They take the waxy stuff and excrete it.
Okay. So super alien bug people.
Yeah.
That not very many people are gonna like. Because if I'm a human and I'm walking down the road and I see a thri-kreen, there are probably some biases that are going to kick in, like, that looks like it'll give me XP if I kill it, or something.
Or it looks like it's either going to say hi or eat me. Yeah, I don't really know, actually, because all it did is turn its head and talk to me and clack its mandibles.
Right. So we were going to talk psionic silkworms, exactly like a honeycomb. So
they could be, you know what? They could be wasp people that lose their... like a bee wasp that loses its wings at some point.
Typically the ones like ants, right? Ants will create queens. When the queens spawn, there'll be males and females. They will breed in air. And then when they hit the ground, the males fall over dead. The queens rip their wings off and then burn the muscle material in order to feed themselves during the time where they're creating like the first few babies. So that's the only kind of like wing removal scenario I can think of that's in the insect world like that.
What if they got hit with a chaos storm?
But what if what if magic though?
Yeah, what if magic though?
Okay. All right. So what if we just divide it into castes?
Okay.
The caste system works really well for insects. So if you had bees, wasps are kind of overdone. And weren't there ant people before that didn't catch on? Well, yeah, exactly. Ant people did
Fomorians or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Formians? I don't remember. For those of you who are unfamiliar with what thri-kreen are, most people are familiar with them from Dark Sun. The original thri-kreen are fairly simplistic creatures. They're super alien in mind. They regard everybody as food. Possible food. Like if you're not useful, then at least you're a snack. The more complex version of thri-kreen is tohr-kreen, who were secretive. They were typically only seen as solitary individuals. Supposedly they had a society somewhere, but they never told anybody about it. And the tohr-kreen were much bigger, like 13 feet long versus a normal thri-kreen. If you're trying to envision what a thri-kreen looks like in your head, you're not willing to use Google, think giant praying mantis with 4 arms and hands.
Yeah. With cool crystal weapons that they make with their spit.
You're so into the crystal weapons and making things with their spit.
It's what they do. They can throw a wedge and it boomerangs back to them. That's amazing.
So Xena could do that. Xena had her throwing thing. I don't remember what it is. Chakram.
That's movie magic.
Roach things from the Mimic movies. Yeah, dude, creepy. Dream. You saw that one too?
Dream eating arthropods or spiders. That is definitely possibilities. But I say let's go for right now. I want to kind of flesh out the wastes. So let's just say they've got a bit of qualities. They're psionic. They're some kind of arthropod or insect.
I'm really interested in your spit solution for large construction projects.
Yes, and they construct things just like a small insect as a big insect. So if they, they gather materials, maybe at some point it wasn't a desert waste, it was actually a forest. And that's why they don't build the giant structures, aside from their population being extremely small, like fractions of percentage small compared to what it was. They also don't have the construction material available. So they don't rebuild anything.
Myconoids. Are myconoids? I didn't check. I just checked licensing for thri-kreen. That was the only thing I checked it for.
Mushroom people, whatever. We can do mushroom people. Come on.
If we decide to do mushroom people, we'll just be like, they're called literally mushroom people. Yeah. Done. Leave us alone.
They're shroomies.
Shroomies. Little shroomy people with little shroomy spears. Done. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mushroom. That's like... That'd be like saying, I don't know, goblins in the book. Mushroom people, not really.
We can't call them myconoids. We'll call them something else.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. All right. Fungal individuals.
Fun guys.
Fun guys. Oh, God.
Dad joke.
Here come the dad joke.
Here come the dad joke. Yes.
So all right. So
let's head back to the build.
Right. We're head back to the wastes. We're out in the wastes. If this is, because this is where my brain's going with it. If this is the crazy chaos wastes where all kinds of lunacy is taking place and there's strange magical effects taking place all the time. This is like prime chimera or chimera, depending on which pronunciation you use.
Chimerism, yeah, that'd be heavy here.
Right.
Everything
would be
everything from owlbear to froghemoth things, desert froghemoths,
exactly.
that kind of feel. Yeah.
Wild animal meanders in. Oh, look, a little bit of grass on the other side of that bug tower. I'm going to go eat that grass. And then boom, storm hits. And now you have crazy Godzilla behemoth with antlers marching out of the wastes. Like, you could do all kinds of stuff here. So would this be the kind of place where we're not going to worry about any kind of ecosystem existing?
Yeah, pretty much. The ecosystem is stuff wanders in and it gets eaten.
Stuff wanders in and it gets eaten.
And there's going to be stuff like maybe something has evolved to eat minerals. So there might be this thing that just lumbers around like a Zorn. But it was originally maybe an armadillo or something. And now it's this rock thing that goes around and munches on stones. But you can still eat it because it's not an earth elemental. It's an actual creature in there, but it's got like a hard carapace. It's got these grinding teeth or some kind of way of dissolving it. Maybe it does acid damage or something now if it bites you or spits at you. And it would just, maybe it spits at the rocks and then drinks it. Maybe that's what it does.
So realistically speaking, we can always go back to the Chaos Waste if we don't know where to put something from a Monster Mash.
Yes. If we make something heinous in the Monster Mash or aberrant.
It's the dumping ground.
Yes. And, plants that try and eat you, I think that should be a thing. Crystals that try and eat you that look like crystals, but they're actually plants or animals.
Constructs. That should be a thing. Stephen Blessing said constructs also make a lot of sense. Sand golems, mimics, and all of that. Yeah,
yes, absolutely. Yes. Yep. Sand golems definitely is just a thing that happens and occurs. A bunch of chaos storm basically adds life and sentience to a thing.
Jandraline in Twitch chat said Myconoid looks like it's probably up for grabs. So
cool. Thank you.
They have a very specific list of things that belong to their IP. So as long as it's not in their list, you're probably okay to go yoink.
And there's some of the really cool ones like Githzeral, Mind Flayers, Beholders.
Yeah, Beholders all day long. Yeah. Of course, you can't actually say that there's any Beholders there. But Beholders all day long.
But yeah, pretty much stuff that has ways of spitting spells at you that floats around and is weird. Like some kind of weird blimp. It could just be like a crystal orb that has a whole bunch of spheres in it that shuffle around inside of it.
I would just stand there confused looking at it like, what could that possibly do? Is that a device? Is it alive?
And then it blasts you. Then it disintegrates your buddy.
No. So, all right. So we're going to say that the Chaos Waste just have a bunch of Chimera in it because this really sounds like an instance where essentially we need a creature randomizer. So if you happen to be wandering around on the Chaos Wastes,
there is a creature. There is actually a Chimera Maker over on Nerdarchy, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So this would be the perfect opportunity to use it.
Exactly. So creatures, it's Roach Motel. Creatures walk in and they don't come back out. If they do come back out, nightmare fuel. They're Chimera Maker or whatever.
Probably Psionic.
Yeah, and probably Psionic. So we're going to have to at some point extrapolate exactly what Psionics entail here. Are you going with your homebrew rules from nerdarchy.com? Are you going with Mystics from a lot of people don't like Mystics.com? Or are you going... They get so much hate on the internet. Every time I go look them up, someone's like, well, you can use them, but they're super overpowered and blah, blah, blah. So what do you want to go with here? I don't think power range is something we have to worry about with these NPCs. So
no, and basically, if I've got a list of spells that I use for the Psionics that I've done for 5e, and I would say pretty much if it's got some powers from that spell list, I think that's you can work out how that Psionic power, how that works with the creature. So there's a lot of magic-like effects that I've got in the Psionics. So
you could go back to the old AD&D second ed once per day thing.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, if something has a breath weapon, why not just give it a psychic blast instead? Like if the original monster that you're basing the thing off of, You can just have psychic damage as a blast instead of a breath weapon.
Easy enough.
Yeah, or instead of breathing out fire, it breathes out this blue, purple light that writhes and wriggles and attaches itself to you.
This is all quite fluffy.
Yeah, that's all fluff.
Blue, purple light.
Oh,
it's lovely to look at.
You meant fluffy like cuddly. No, I meant it's just
exactly.
a lot of it is just take some aberrants, take some creatures that you like, and just add something strange to it. And then that's put a note for this is make like a template add-on.
Yeah, we are supposed to be recording some of this information, so it can actually.
I'm getting some of it. So template add-on for monster making.
Right, we need a general. Just a deer walks in, a crocodile walks in, a crocodile walks out. What is a crocodile's stats? That is what we need. It's happy. It jumps around. This is big grass.
Crocodile.
Totally friendly, terrifying
Fear
looking.
the crocodile. Yeah. So, add Psionic attack.
Fraginator, how's it going, buddy? Glad you made it. Sam Parsons says psionics are basically magic that comes from your mind, at least in the comics. I don't know what. There are a lot of different interpretations of psionics. I think we're going with Nate's specific interpretation right now. Right. I'm a Jean Grey, Dark Phoenix kind of psionics guy. What is your specifically the Nate version of psionics?
Put me on the spot here. Okay, so back when I made Psionics for 5e, I wrote up this thing called a psychic well. And a psychic well was dug out by either some kind of crazy experience, kind of like the superhero origin. I almost died in a fire and then I could walk through it and not have a problem. Or I got super strength and pushed a rock off me and then I made it down the mountain. Or I could block something that was going to kill me, like an animal. It just the shield came up and hurt it or whatever. So you can have that basically forged in fire, that kind of concept where you become a psionicist by some kind of extreme experience that almost kills you, but instead made you stronger, and you discover these powers. The other way is through training. You training your mind to actually you're digging that well. So one is like explosive excavation because you need to live, and the other one is you're methodically truing up that well for power. So they're both equally valid as psionicists, but the background that you're coming from for that is different.
So one of these is like a stereotypical trigger event, like a bad thing happened to the little girl.
Yeah, superhero comic trigger event.
And she burned the house down. Now she fights crime. The other one is I went to a school and Xavier teaches me every day. I keep going back to the Marvel universe.
I sit on the mountain and contemplate what the world is really made of.
Yes.
And how to take those things it's made out of and make new things.
Like the bad guy from the Avatar movie or show. The movie was terrible. That's just my opinion. I loved the cartoon. I watched the whole show and then the movie came along. I'm sorry. I won't go into that right now. Letdowns.
I understand.
Oh yeah, Rift psionics. Jan's talking about Rifts. Rifts had interesting psionics. There are a bunch of games that took their own journey with psionics. Now, with your psionics, is it I think it and it happens?
Oh, so that's the next thing. So you've made your psychic well basically to draw power from, where power collects like rainwater. And you can draw power out of it and create an effect. Kind of like the spell slot, but we do the pool instead, which is why I went with the water metaphor and the well. So you've got your psychic pool of power, and I call them drams, like a dram, a drop, a drink, that kind of thing, to kind of go along with the water metaphor more.
I've said this before, but when you give me a unit of measurement, I immediately imagine the needle going in and the mad scientist
we're going to extract all your psychic drams.
Delicious. Oh, yes. So
delicious tarts. Yeah, so you could have that happen. Some supervillain probably does it, but you can do that same thing with magic. I'm just going to extract all your high level spell slots, and it gives me a certain magic power. So anyway, so we've got this unit of measurement in a way, and you've got this well of power, and then from there you develop this kind of circuitry, psychic circuitry, or like lines of power that create specialized glyphs in your body. And when you push power through those glyphs, your psychic power activates. And that's I say that's intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
So that I made them wisdom based instead of intellect based, like they are as mystics. But I said it was intuitive because you're basically discovering. It's individualized, it's discovery, and it's also intuitive, like punching. Like you just strike out. Like how you strike out is through your own, without special training. You're just like, but you're still able to like instinctually attack. So that kind of same thought process was going in for my psychic circuitry stuff, which is where you build these lines of power in and around your body. So basically, when you detect magic on a psychic person, a high level psychic person will have these lines in and out, and it'll kind of have like diagrams, like magic, almost like magic circles overlaid and wrapped in and going through them.
I read a few fantasy settings where magic was channeled similarly. They used tattoos, and essentially the tattoos bonded the magic to them. Sam Parsons said, I was just thinking there is pyrokinesis, psychokinesis, cryokinesis, telepathy, and more in comics. And those could all be represented by D&D spells, regardless of origins or mechanics. And absolutely, I would say for any version of Psionics, that's the most important thing to remember. We literally have all the rules already. It's pretty fundamental to implement. So
yeah, I took pyrokinesis and cryokinesis and shoved that into psychokinesis. So I actually took a lot of inspiration from second edition because I grew up with Psionic second edition. It was the first D&D book I purchased. And they've got the psychometabolic or the metabolist or the metamorph who was getting wild shape. We're getting a lot into psionics here. We need to make a psionics after dark episode.
That's what the setting is.
But the setting is heavily
target.
We drive a lot. So I'll do the basic layout. So we had basically the humanoid shapeshifter that starts with flesh armor on his body and is able to change shape. Yeah, flesh armor was basically could turn. It hardens your bones. It hardens your skin to basically create armor over you. So the idea was it was like barbarian unarmored defense.
I just don't like to hug you when you have flesh armor on.
Your dex. It's your dex. I think I did your dex and your constitution. I think is what I did. I mean, people can look at the website for the rules for it. But basically, it was you got basically like draconic armor, but it wasn't rather than a flat 13 plus your dex, it was your dex plus your constitution plus 10. So similar to that, and then you got the ability to wild shape, but humanoid shape. So you got the ability to shape change into humanoids, similar to doppelganger. And you got everything except like spell casting ability. Basically, you did not gain any like special traits, spell casting, or sonic powers from the shape changing. You got the physical traits and the physical
turn into the Yeti, but no breathing ice or freezing people solid with your eyes.
Yeah, if the Yeti counts as a humanoid, which I'm not sure it does. It might be a giant. So
I could argue that with you.
So eventually you could turn into things that were giants. Like you could turn into ogres at a certain hit dice. You could turn basically the restrictions on flying and swimming that is in wild shape. It just had a different type of restriction for like size categories. So you could eventually shape change into these other creatures, but it was just humanoids. It wasn't beasts. It wasn't any of that stuff. So that was kind of like his main thing. And then he had things that made sense for somebody who had that kind of body manipulation ability, like spells like alter form or whatever that lets you have the claws. Which I know you like a lot.
My favorite thing ever.
Yeah, your favorite thing ever.
Giant claws. I'm in.
Spells like jump might not make sense for every psionic, but for metabolist it makes perfect sense. So things like that, stone skin, that kind of stuff. So those are all like basically like tailored spells chosen for that were going to make sense with Metabolist or General Psionics. So then I did that for the other one. So like a psychokinesis person eventually gets Fabricate because it can literally put the item together a piece at a time. So things that you would think normally are just a preview of the wizard or the cleric can all kind of fall within Psionics based on the type that you do. And then there's the claircognizant, which is like the clairvoyant diviner. And there's the telepath, and there's also a couple other ones.
No, I'm totally into it. We had Paul Jamal said he uses magical circuitry in his homebrew, kind of like Rift's Techno Wizards.
Nice.
With giant claws and gross skin armor, you can become Armadillo Man. You can make your superhero the dragons. Done. So we know how psionics work. Does that mean the thri-kreen covered in, because they have a big hardcore carapace, right? By the way, most terrifying thing ever I ran into in Dark Sun, thri-kreen undead, because it's just an animated carapace. Horrifying. Anyway,
thri-kreen zombies.
So the bug people are going to have some version of the psychic circuitry, or is it natural to them so they don't need it? Like, how does that work for them?
Okay, so the bug people, I guess they would have some kind of that, or it would naturally be internalized. So it'd be so internal that you wouldn't see it with detect magic.
I don't want it internal. I want them to have cool looking like sigils and marks and stuff.
If they have psychic powers on top of the normal creature, yeah, they would have that.
Okay. All right. We're making progress here. I'll convince him. Don't worry. It's an awesome idea.
Bug people.
Okay. So we still need to decide exactly. We didn't create any conditions for going into the wastes. And I think ultimately, there's going to be a large amount of lore around it.
So how to get into it?
Well, if a GM wants to use it, he's going to want to know some basic things, like the first few chunks of information. I'm GMing. I want to know what happens when I interact with quote unquote bug people when I go to one of the towers. And then if I'm adamant, I'm walking across the chaos wastes. What is the situation?
So surviving the chaos waste then?
Right. We're going to need to know some kind of things that can happen. Most importantly to me right now is I'm walking across the chaos wastes and I'm either a psionicist or a wizard.
That'll up your survivability based on what comes around.
Well, what if I'm caught unawares? What if a storm hits and I'm busy sleeping away? I just had a big dinner of goblin stew and I'm I'm all tuckered out from all the XP I earned that day, and now I'm napping it off, and boom, storm comes in, bad things happen, I'm asleep, no protection. Mr. L, what if the psionics have a measure of a hive mind that they can partly shut off, and the occasional chaos storm brings mental whispers?
Ooh,
that's just creepy.
Whispers. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's say mapping the ways. So the I don't know how large it is, but let's say it's 1,000 miles across.
Holy macaroni! That's like the entire interior of the United States.
Yeah. Well,
not the borders. I mean, the U.S. is like 2,500 miles across.
Kenya is a mega Earth, so.
Okay, so that's
this
big.
Will fit. Will fit. It'll
fit.
It'll be like, if you imagine, let's say it's 1,000 miles across. There's probably 2 United States on either side of it worth of space just on that one continent.
Okay, all right. So it's not taking it up an unrealistic for our setting amount of space. So it's taking up a massive amount of space. For whatever reason, I'm a lunatic. Me and my adventuring party, we're going right across it through the middle.
So let's say there's 100 miles as a border.
Okay.
Where it's going from not chaos waste, like shrubland, to chaos waste, and about the 50-mile mark is where these towers are.
Okay. Okay. Would you be able to tell? Oh, tabletop logistics. Thank you for the host. I don't know if I said that already, but I meant
No,
to.
you don't. You didn't.
So, where can I tell? Me and the adventuring party are tromping forward. We're noticing that the ground's starting to get a kick up a little dust because there's less vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to see as we start to get close to the chaos waste?
All right. So what you'll see is the kind of a plain with some variation. There'll be some mountains or like large ruins that are just rubble at this point, off in the distance. And let's say at 10 miles in, you'll easily see the one or two or three of the towers in your view.
Okay.
Some of them are dilapidated. Some of them actually still work and are inhabited.
I like that.
So that way you can kind of like have some variation. It's not guaranteed you're going to have all these towers because some of them don't no longer are functional or are broken. And at the 50-mile mark of where it started to kind of like get scrubland and gross and just kind of like looked more like going towards desert. Well, at 50 miles, you're in the chaos waste and the towers are there. Like they're right there.
Okay.
And from beyond that, you're going to see a lot of hazy strangeness. It'll be like desert plus a bit of mirage here and there. But it'll be, as far as you can see, there might be a mesa every once in a while. There might be like a chasm or something. But for the most part, as far as you can see, it's just ripply desert land.
Okay, so we're going like limited sand dunes, not gigantic, like Arrakis sand dunes.
Well, it's like 1,000 miles across. You can imagine you can only see so far.
Yeah. Okay.
So maybe some of your vision's cut off because a small mountain range or giant sand dunes are there.
So if Brian Smith says, how would you traverse it? Like, would your mounts just get all warped and you'd end up fighting your own? He said vehicle, but your own mount. So if Brian Smith is ever in a game with you, he'd like to be chimeraed with his mouth.
Chimeraed. That's nice. I like that.
Well, that's what we're ending up with.
Yeah. Or he says tinfoil hats might work. Not give your mount a tinfoil hat. So what you're going to do is if you just like came into the waste, I would say there's going to be like saving throws involved for the creatures around you being affected. If a storm rolls in, if you don't, as a DM, if you don't want to mess with the players, you can just kind of say, well, you don't get hit by a storm. But
so if we're not getting hit by a storm, is it just like wandering through a desert?
It's like a desert, but rather than the sun being the most oppressive thing, it's the atmosphere, the psychic atmosphere is oppressive.
That sounds horrible.
Like you can become mad.
I turn around and leave. So
the whispers get too strong and drive you mad. That can be one of the things that happen. So you would definitely have, let's say, all right, you come with a whole bunch of water. You come with a whole bunch of food. You come with a vehicle that can traverse the desert. And you say, all right, we're going through this waste. We're going to map out the center of it. And then we're going to go through to the other side and see what the heck's over there. Because I've never been there. And there's nothing written about it. You go, okay, let's get it all together. So you go. You're like, we've got all the water. We've got all the food. We're pretty good. A couple storms happen. A couple people screaming and wake up having nightmares and stuff. They're a little tired. Can't get to sleep after a while. And, they've got a few days of being grumpy. All right, well, a week in, some kind of terrible monstrosity kills half the people, breaks your water barrels, and drinks it all. And you're stuck with wandering the desert, half dehydrated, dying after a week because you just ran out of water, and you start drinking the pools of stuff because you're thirsty. So then you start getting a little crazy. So you'll start like basically taking, like, madness is definitely. I actually, if you live in the Chaos Waste area, I'm gonna kind of make it like a different realm. It's almost as if you're playing in Dark Sun in Forgotten. Like if you said, "Oh, this is Forgotten Realms," it's like you have a Dark Sun pocket in Forgotten Realms. There's like a difference in how you play. There's a difference in the type of challenges you'll get. So madness would be introduced in this, and you could have a chance of. It would be, if you didn't want to do the madness rules, you can do that's kind of a disease that like makes your sanity go off a little bit.
So the little pools would be actual nightmare fuel.
Yes. Well, you're drinking mineralized water. Some of those minerals aren't good for you.
Interesting.
Make you a little crazy. Oh, I like James Leslie's idea. So wisdom save to prevent madness or take a level of exhaustion, in quotation marks, except the exhaustion is represented by your sanity loss. So
you could have
a separate tier of it's like exhaustion, but it's, like a madness chart and like what the different things that happen as you go down this chart.
Okay, all right. So this is a thing that should be written.
Yes, I'll do that while you chat.
We should use liquid nightmares. That's exactly what I was thinking, Axnar. He was like, you drink out of the pool and then you start to lose your mind. I was like, oh yeah, this is literal nightmare fuel. Like we can bottle this and sell it. We can put a little label on it. Nightmare fuel, done. So some pools could even make you, so pools of poisonous water, because who knows how they've been changed by storms sweeping through and stuff like that.
Yes, you really just don't know what's in that water.
Right. So we're going to make all kinds of crazy stuff be here. You could theoretically encounter just about anything or hallucinate just about anything. And we need some Cthulhu-esque /1996 chill rules for sanity loss. Like, we could use the level of exhaustion mechanic. That would work reasonably well. Kyle Ellis, saltwater. It could just be, there could be pools of water, but because they don't really have a source, maybe they very, very infrequently receive more water. They could be saltwater.
So there's this weed, I think it's called loco weed and crazy weed. And what happens is it, for some reason, will draw up selenium in high concentrations. And if a creature or a person eats it, when you have too much selenium, you can go a little crazy. Just similar, like if you have a lot of lithium. I mean, like, what is it? Valium is pretty much lithium carbonate. So it's basically like so much lithium and you become like docile like a cow. Like, you're like, yeah, nothing really seems to bother me, but nothing gets me excited about anything. And you're just totally like, you just wander. You're like, oh, wandering off into the waste with my party or wandering off in this direction towards the monsters, same to me. Like lose the survival you could lose, type of madness that loses a survival mechanism. Type of madness that you just, even think this rock is your friend and everything else is trying to take it away from you. Whatever happens to you, like delirium, that kind of stuff.
Ranger stock just went up 100%.
Yes. A ranger who can tell you what's going on in the wastes. Yes, that's exactly. Super important.
Yeah, I think if you followed with some basic, but we need to define some kind of, the GM needs some kind of lead, some tool he can use to get some concept of the kinds of things we're going to see out there. And it's the chaos wastes. So there's mostly sand, maybe an occasional oasis. If we're saying that's all that's out there, and these storms sweep through, then there could be any number of things that maybe could be sand based or entirely different from sand. Like there were rules for ash elementals and sand elementals in Dark Sun.
Let's take this template add-on monster making concept. And so you could take a creature and you could add the construct template to it. You could take a creature and add an undead template to it. And by that, I mean, look at a ghoul. Well, a ghoul gets, it might not care about poisons. It doesn't care about XYZ thing. And maybe it has the zombie ability. So you've got these creatures that maybe they're like gray ash in color and they used to be a humanoid or heck, even like a bull or something like that. But it's like got a gray slick on its coat. It's got these red bloodshot eyes that are kind of glassed over. And it's just a zombie bull. But it wasn't made by a necromancer. It was made by the chaos waste or something it drank or just something. So you could take a creature and add a subtype to it.
Okay. All right.
And there's things that are basically inherent. Like a construct doesn't need to eat, breathe, sleep. It's usually made out of a material rather than flesh. and stuff affects it differently. Like shatter will affect it differently because it's like it's an object rather than an organic material.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of the things that I like in the Chaos Waste that I made up myself, I took a Nothic, made it crystalline, and then its beam of necrotic damage just does psychic damage instead. And that's all I changed to it. Made it crystalline. It's now a construct basically. So it gained the immunities that you would get from being a construct, but it also gained the susceptibility of being a construct.
So chat is blowing up. The Peter Jarl brings up a very interesting point. Maybe we want to talk about that. This whole place sounds like catnip for Illithid.
Yeah, like, this smells delicious.
And we have point and counterpoint on that. Stephen Blessing said the Illithid probably would feel really icky in this place, like their fine-tuned psionic abilities don't work like they expect them to. So you could, I can just imagine a crazy Illithid, literally driven mad, wandering the wastes, and you bump into him, and he wants to have a conversation. Like, he literally doesn't even want to eat your brain. He just wants to have a chit chat about where he's been walking all day.
I also thought you could have the mad, crazy, wild ones where, so what was it? Not Halo, Half-Life, with those things that get on your head, and then there was the when you had it on there for a really long time, you got really fast and spindly.
Yeah,
I think it was like Raven Towner or something like that where that was happening. If anybody who remembers Half-Life, but anyway, so you had like this really super fast thing that would just go around and eat stuff, like almost like a feral Illithid. I think that would be pretty cool.
What is the frequency of the chaos storms?
The chaos storms, there's, I would say, almost always one happening, but it could be anything from just like a pool-sized version of it, like a Dust Devil version of a chaos storm, all the way up to there's a major one happening across half of the wastes. That's barely contained by the towers.
Kyle Ellis throws out an interesting idea, and this is something else maybe you could run with, because the Illithid can essentially protect itself, but it can't stay awake all the time. So at some point it has to let its defenses down or create devices to protect itself. Kyle Ellis says, I feel Illithids would definitely evolve differently here. Maybe more independent, since the psionic dust, everything whirling around them, would interfere with the hive mind. So there could be an independent group of Illithid, like even just Illithid living like tribal people. You know what I mean? Like, they don't use their mental powers for anything. They don't eat brains. They eat, ribs or chimera bits. I don't know. But you could literally have like different groups of creatures in Illithid and other psionic-based creatures wandering these wastes, doing things you would never imagine they would do in another setting.
What's for dinner tonight? Oh, chimera stew. Yeah, that didn't tell me anything. That didn't tell me anything. What's for dinner?
It's roadkill, mostly.
Yeah, it's like roadkill, basically. The roadkill version of food is chimera bits. Chimera jerky.
I mean, ultimately, I think Barbarian Feral Illithids by Scott McClay. What if you did just a new version of Illithid that lives in the wastes? Something different.
So, yeah. And it's got again, running into this IP problem.
Oh, is Illithid just theirs?
Oh, yeah, man.
I know Beholder is.
Gary Gygax didn't rip off Tolkien for that.
Just we didn't mean it, guys. Don't be mad.
Just messing.
But he did do that.
Well, I mean, elves and dwarves and all that kind of stuff. That was all like, old school mythology stories and stuff. So.
Yeah. It would make sense that something would have to traverse the crystal wastes and guide and scavenge things. Absolutely. You could do something really, really interesting with that as far as like different species were concerned.
So let's say there's a group of humans or something that become aberrant, but they stabilize. They kind of gain a particular type of immunity to this. So there are these tribes of people that live in the wastes, and they
have some form of latent psychic ability that's incredibly powerful, but it's not focused.
Yeah.
It just prevents the wastes from messing with them. So like every day is a normal day for them, but then they see this crazy stuff happen around them. Their pantheon of gods must look way more interesting than anyone's. We believe this came not from the mountain god or the sun god, but from the whatever.
The three-headed...
Maybe they have like a desert god that they believe in.
I think they'd be heavy on the luck.
Heavy on
And that'd probably be like the main deity of the area would be the god of luck.
Illithids are basically squids, so go with a new name for the Independents. So they are like cephalians, like a cephalopod. Don't remember how they got here. That's not a terrible idea. Cephalians, something like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go with aberrant humans.
So that we can cleverly avoid their entire IP.
Well, I mean, they're aberrant. They're going to look weird. And illithids look weird, so... But they're not going to be brain-sucking alien monsters. So...
Raven said give them dream time instead of gods. Interesting. They pray to the chaos storm.
Like
Lincoln,
like an animist volcano god kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. They just pray to the chaos storm. That would be totally fine. After chaos storm, would there be creatures who would show up to eat the newly awakened grass shrubs? You walk into the chaos waste and there's this cow munching down this super adorable little shrub. No,
it's screaming.
You're just gnawing bits off of it. This could be a really cute cartoon or a horror movie. It's your choice, really. Large creatures like an ash strider protecting smaller creatures like whale sharks. This could get incredibly interesting. Wasn't there a race on the Nerdarchy site for a mutt race with random bits together? Was that the Mongrel Men? Yeah.
Oh yeah. That could be a great. Yeah, good call. Mongrel Men.
We should make a note of that. Bam, work done. Loco locusts that spawn after the storm and feast on all the psionic energy. That's an excellent idea. A bunch of like some because like for me, I'm imagining some form of really incredible ecosystem forming out of this. That's where I'm always on the David Attenborough kick. So I see creatures living here. I can hear David Attenborough's "Here We See." I can hear him in my head talking about these wastes. I mean, was the original intention to have these be completely lifeless, or are you willing to populate it with something more interesting than sand?
Oh, okay. Rather than just be a desert.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's gotta have an ecosystem. That's true. But it's just going to be more stretched out. So you got this 1,000 miles across area. You're going to have lizards. You're going to have things that have either wandered in or have lived there for a long time. And they're just, some of them are altered. Some of them are different. Ooh, dune worms. Like that, Lincoln.
Kyle Ellis is watching David Attenborough right now about the Kalahari. His voice is amazing. What do you want from me? He's great.
All right, so what do we want to say? So there does have to be a few sources of water that are either able to be purified or okay, or they just collect rainwater or whatever. Or we'll have to figure out something like that. So we're saying we want to touch briefly on the flora and fauna aspect.
Right. And Axanar said that's an interesting perspective on it, Axanar. A desert is kind of limiting in terms of potential adventures. I would argue against you on that. I would say Dune. I would say, what's the name of that movie where the guy races a horse across the desert? I think there's tons of stuff. I think you give me any location, it can be the bottom of the ocean, a desert, the middle of empty space. There's always a story you can tell there. And given the craziness of the scenario that Nick has built here, I think you could tell any story you wanted. Like my first thought was the Gelflings in the beginning of Dark Crystal going like the girl yelling at Zig, like, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be insane stuff here.
There are some normal flora fauna, but they're all tweaked a little bit. You know, like maybe they have a carapace, or maybe they have fur where they wouldn't normally have fur.
Or maybe like just the shrubbery, but it breathes.
Yeah.
Just
it
weird.
Breathe and pulses and.
Yeah, exactly. James Leslie nailed it. You win, chat, Vidalgo. That is what it was. It wasn't the most amazing movie, but it did have a cool story to go in a desert setting, and it's a compelling story for a desert setting. Hidalgo. There we go. Dune is mostly a political epic. Yeah. There should be a creature like the Blizzard Beast from Monster Mashup. Well, I think the overriding theme here with what we're going to do with this is take the Blizzard Beast, turn all of its damage from ice into psionic, take all its hair off, and throw it in the desert. Done.
Yeah, like, Sandstorm Beast.
Sandstorm Beast, done.
Yeah, sandstorm with tentacle claws coming out of it that blast you with heat and radiance. Oh man, or psychic power.
Oh man. See, now here's the question that I always ask: are you excited about that as a player or a GM? Because if I were a player, I would not be excited about that.
Of course, I'm excited about it as a player. I will kill them all. Yeah, I am excited as a DM to play in this region. So another thing I was considering was tilting it a little more onto the Dark Sun angle.
Okay.
And you know how metal's rare in Dark Sun. Well, if you think
Dark Sun.
If you think about it, metal is very ordered and structured. Mm-hmm. Everything's kind of, you've got the metallic object. It's rigid. It has purpose. It's like the antithesis of chaos in a lot of ways. So I was thinking that metallic objects over time might be hindered in some way. Maybe they get twisted out of shape if they're not enchanted or, psychically protected. Maybe they start to rust and basically turn into sand and move around and just go. So there might be a region of the Chaos Waste that is just this, rusty sand pit that is all just where a whole bunch of iron has collected into the rusted bits.
What if you went in a bunch of different kinds of radiation come off a nuclear explosion. Okay. A ton of them you can block with a piece of paper. But there are several other kinds. Basically, the radioactive isotope flies through, it attaches itself to something that it just hit, and then when the isotope breaks down, it takes whatever it attached itself to with it, right? So what if you went on kind of a radiation perspective with this and just, you've been in there for a while and the players are walking along and, Nate, you're playing you're in a paladin this time. Sure. And you're walking along on your paladin. And as you guys are walking along, your chest piece just kind of shifts and falls a little bit. And when you check to see what happened, just the leather strap that was there is essentially just turned to dust, right? So you could just start to affect any physical object that's in there. Maybe just inert objects that aren't alive, that don't have any life force or psychic energy to them would be affected this way. Which could be why there's a desert here.
Yeah, because a lot of the structures just get disassociated into bits.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, it wouldn't it be sand in a normal glass sense? I think someone also mentioned this, but I was getting to it. Is it's not sand in the normal glass sphere sense. It's sand as in broken down Thri-kreen Empire is all swirling around. So you're kind of like wading through the tiny micro crushed pieces of the dead of millions of Thri-kreen.
Interesting.
Plus, their places of living and things like that.
So giving to the concept of everything breaking down that doesn't have psychic energy, a person could walk through and your like hair would be affected.
Yeah, you might be bald.
Like you'd start losing clumps of hair. It would be just like radiation.
Oh, yeah, like radiation.
Yeah, it would be just like being exposed to we've gone totally gamma world now. It's like going through a high rad zone where it starts to destroy your equipment, destroy non-living things.
But it's chaos magic, not radiation.
Right. It's chaos magic instead.
Yeah.
You mean a planet after Exterminatus? Yeah.
Oh, Exterminatus. Oh boy.
Yeah, Wilder Smith asks, mundane objects have a chance to just rust away. I think that's everything that's there would decay. That you could, oh God.
I would say things that have lived. I'd say crystal, things that have been alive previously, and things that are alive. That would be well, okay, so let me say again. So the most deteriorating thing is something like metal object.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got things that have been previously alive, so bone and wood and stuff like that. And then you have living creatures, and then you have crystal. That's the array. So as much as crystal stays the same in the chaos waste, metal deteriorates. So they're on the opposite ends. And then you've got the split down the middle where you're closer to the resistance of crystal to chaos interference if you're a living creature with psychic power. Then you're closer to being deteriorated if you're a living creature just being alive and being consciously active. And then that's why you have messed up dreams, because if you're unconscious or asleep, it can kind of mess with you. But that's more madness stuff. But then if you're dead or you're used to be a living organism and you're like leather now or bone or wood, you're not as resistant as something that was alive, even a sleeping thing. But you're more resistant to the chaos influence than something that is like really hard level of order like metal.
Okay.
But crystal's always been psionic, so crystals are like totally fine. So they're like the opposite. Otherwise, they would be the same, have the same problems as metal.
Would it deteriorate or transmute though? Could steel become bronze or iron slowly break down and change? I think the idea here is that everything is essentially deteriorating here, which brings up another thing.
Yeah,
if you
like
grab
rot
a handful of sand, you have a bunch of different things in there. It's silicon, but there's like stone, like random basalts and all kinds of other
diatoms.
Right. So your handful of sand here, because sand's the color it is because of what it's composed of. Your handful of sand here, composed of a Thri-kreen empire, might be a whitish gray color. It's bleached bone and actual sand and metals and the stones or crystals that they built their structures from. I mean, you could end up with some really weird stuff out here. And then you don't need to do the sand dunes via prevailing winds. You can just do sand dunes because that was a castle.
There you go.
That could be very cool.
Yeah, a giant city was here, and now it's just mounds of stuff.
A bunch of weird stuff being. Kyle Ellis said during a storm, all even numbers are a critical hit and all odd numbers are a critical miss.
That's harsh.
I really like the idea of some form of dice variety, though.
Yeah, that is interesting. I like that.
Just to reflect the manipulation of the world around you while you're trying to deal with the crazy chaos storm. Why just deteriorating? Chaos from the Feywild would be more an oasis of creation. That's interesting, Mr. L.
you've got a better chance, I think, of coming upon a person that has their sword, like a corpse or something that's turned into something, and their sword is just dusty bits of rust, than a coming upon a sword fully formed randomly, just like sticking out of a stone or something. So,
Stephen Blessing would like to know, so where does psionic crystal come from?
okay, so that is going to be kind of the general, I think the generic property of crystal is it's more energy active and energy interactive with the powers of the psychics. Just similar to, gemstones being able to store magic. It's just their native property is crystals can store magic and psionic power.
Okay.
So rather than be a special crystal type in the Chaos Waste, which I'm sure there'd be like places you could mine out a special kind of psychic crystal. But the general crystal that's around is most likely just quartz or something. Or some other mineral crystal.
Common mundane crystal types.
Yeah, common mundane crystals. But maybe it used to be a creature that was just slain, and it is this crystal formation now. There you go. Kyle Ellis. The molecular structure of crystals make them perfect for storing energy. There you go.
During chaos storms, you have to use THACO. Mark Christensen. Can you imagine? Okay, guys, you're not going to like this. It's a chaos storm, and you want to roll to hit. So here's how this works. Yeah,
First, we've got to convert our current armor classes to...
yeah, exactly. Reverse your armor class, and then use THACO. Done. Yeah, this is another thing I was thinking about. Mark Christensen said, how would spellcasting differ in the waste? And that was something I was definitely thinking about as well, as far as like, how does spellcasting get affected? How does psionics use get affected?
Thank you for bringing it up, because that's definitely a thing that needs to get talked about. So,
okay.
Let me start that.
Yes, give us a new heading.
Yes,
we've gone through so much stuff tonight as far as ideas.
Yeah, and I've taken so few notes. I'm gonna have to watch this again just for all the stuff. Yes, Kyle, graboids. They've got to be in here somewhere, some version. Okay, so magic in the waste. I want to do it so everybody has a chance of doing wild magic, which is why the people at the towers use Psionics to control it, because magic can get whipped right up with the chaos magic, with the chaos storms. So I want it to be like, if you're a wild magic, you're rolling twice as much as you normally would. And if you're a regular magic user, you are using the wild magic stuff. So it's like magic is at a disadvantage in the zone.
Okay. All right. So could we then say, just because this would tickle me pink, could we then say that, like, you're in the chaos waste and you cast like a 7th, 8th, or 9th level spell, maybe you could be the butterfly that causes the hurricane? You know what I mean?
That's a good point, yeah.
You could cause a chaos storm to whip up because you used a ton of magical energy. Wilder Smiths.
How would we say this? Everyone rolls for wild surge when they use magic?
Yeah, I would definitely go with like a typical... if you're trying to do your hand. Yeah. And then you could just amend the table to be like, if you roll the worst possible thing, you created a storm. Merry Christmas. Kyle Ellis says, I really think glass should be utilized a lot in this environment, which gives an interesting precedent for you talking about metal not working well and other things not working well, especially since the thri-kreen are naturally producing this crystalline substance. So maybe...
Yeah, so the thri-kreen stuff has an advantage because it's crystalline, but it's also organic in origin. So it had lived previously as well as being a crystal. So it's better off than glass would be. But glass in this instance it's a crystal. So it has technically metal's a crystal too, but it's more malleable.
Magic.
So
We can match
glass, I would say naturally formed crystal is going to have a better resistance than glass would. Glass is kind of like median for that.
it. All right.
Which is so basically so bioorganic crystal formation, like the thri-kreen stuff, would be. Yes, you're right. It's amorphous. Yeah, it does have that malleability to it as well. So, yeah, it's probably like closer to metal weakness than an organic creature. So it would be on the other side of the glass. But like I said, the bioorganic crystal creation, that would be really, really resistant.
I would definitely write down some criteria for considered living, right? Because just as an aid to GMs and players, I found when writing rules for tabletop games that the fewer opportunities you present people to argue a specific ruling, the faster and easier and more fun a game can be. It and what used to be living, I could see that definitely being argued, like sea salt. Like if somebody says it's sea salt or it's not sea salt, all salt used to be in a sea. That's how salt usually gets produced. So
Okay.
so you could have someone argue that technically at some point in the past it used to be living or it used to be an organic material. So maybe some kind of guidelines for what is
obvious things like a dead body is a dead organic.
Right.
A once
right.
living object is wood or leather.
Yeah.
Kind of
So and thankfully because it's not a
kidney stones
setting.
don't count.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Someone's going to grab onto that, like latch onto it and just die hard on no, this is technically living at some point. Maybe they'll even go with the like we're all stardust argument somewhere along the line. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Somebody's gonna fight for this. So what can we toss in to fix that?
Yeah.
I'm the GM, just leave it alone. That's my answer.
Yeah.
In my world, it works this way. A clear ooze just sitting in a depression would look like a pond. Yeah, you could do like a gelatinous cube kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's so viscous that you have to clear off before you start overheating and dying. Oh, so you would get in the pool and the pool wouldn't kill you or anything, but it would be so viscous that you couldn't get it off you. And it's the desert, so you'd start to overheat like you were covered in plastic. This sounds like a Monster Mash idea.
All right, I'm going to say Robert Hobbs, if glass is melted sand, isn't glass just a manufactured version of the crystals? Yeah, this is where we're getting into the nitty-gritty of stuff. All right, so you've taken something that's totally fine, and then you've added, you attempted to add order to it by making it a glass piece. Well, I'm going to view that similarly to the metallic objects, like a mineral rock, bog iron that you take out of the bogs, let dry, and then put in a furnace to make iron. The bog iron's fine. The metal object is going to deteriorate rapidly, comparatively speaking, unless it's psionically protected. So there wouldn't be very much natural metal that's around in the world. So it's like kind of got that dark sun feel. And there would not be metal objects coming in if they don't get treated. So basically, metal objects that make it to one of the towers might be a place where they've got metal objects. But people going into the waste would not want to go into the waste with their metal objects because it's just they're not reliable.
Faranordy on Twitch said, quote, "Congratulations, players. Your wands are now wands of wonder." So that does bring up a really interesting question, though. What is the context for a magic item? I'm wearing my favorite magic item ever is a suit of plate mail that always gives you a perfect interior temperature. That's so if it's hot, you're fine. If it's cold, you're fine. What are the ramifications on magic items? James Leslie, if the wastes are a waylaid land from another time, would illusionary terrain be a high risk in the waste given the images of past lives trapped in that is a crazy idea. So crazy psionic visions and other stuff like that. I would assume that you would see stuff like that.
Yeah, you would weird stuff like that would absolutely happen. If you want to insert strange ghost phenomena, strange psychic, kind of like images from the past occurring, like illusionary terrain. That could be a really legit thing for it.
Okay.
You could technically have people wander out of a storm and have, you meet people that have supposedly been dead for thousands of years, but they're just sitting here talking to you.
And so begins.
And maybe they lived, maybe they're alive right now, maybe they can actually leave the storm, or maybe they're trapped in the storm. So begins what?
So, well, I was going to say, and so begins the character's adventures when they're, on the edge of the chaos waste, and some dude wanders out and he's like, where am I? And you find out he's like some long lost hero from 1,000 years ago who's, there's so much you could do with that.
Yeah.
Echoes.
Yes, echoes.
Exactly. No, that's an excellent idea. And Stephen Blessing said, so you would see things like the metal flaking off from itself.
If you watched it like a camera,
paint drying.
Yeah, like paint drying. Yes.
Hunter Williams asserts, so time and space and reality don't exist in the chaos storm. I believe they exist, but when there are storms, they are manipulated by this, I guess, untethered, uncontrolled power.
All right, so I'm going to do a little behind the screens action right now. I know we've been talking about this, but okay. So the chaos storms are the plot device of the region. Does that make sense? What do you want the chaos storms to do? Do you want to have, it's like, what breaks on the ship in Star Trek? And why does it break? And how do they figure out the solution? What metaphor did they use? That kind of stuff. That's all like, so behind the scenes, the chaos storm is pretty much there to
do whatever you want.
To do plot things you want to do.
It does plot things.
and so if you want people from the past, if you want a hero from the past to be trapped in the storm, and people have caught glimpses of this person, so you're like, I'm going to go out and try and find him. He must be living in this waste and somehow become immortal. But no, he's really just trapped in the storms, and he's just been continued on, kind of caught in some kind of loop of trying to get out of the storms. And maybe that's just an aspect. That's an aspect of the current iteration of this little bit of the storm, is that he's actually continued onwards. While maybe there's 500 other people that have walked in that were just as heroic as him, but they're no longer alive because the chaos storms have deteriorated them into nothing. So he's the one that made it, the one that lived. So that kind of concept. But and like driving the plot or the storylines that you want a ghost story, then there's a ghost in the chaos waste. You know what I mean?
So essentially, this is the GM's deck of many things.
Yes.
He just says, what do I need? And hopefully gets what he needs out of like bending the chaos storm to whatever the storyline currently is. That I like the idea of plot mechanics like that. I just had a bad guy named Fitzroy. He was my plot machine. He did all kinds of stuff. I'm all about the giant evil bad guy that's always picking on everybody. So Fitzroy was that guy.
Sometimes you just need that guy.
What's that?
Sometimes you just need that guy.
Sometimes you do. I often think of magic as sort of being able to manipulate the property of existence itself. Like chaotic storms would pull things from the set of things that could possibly exist and create them. That is a very long way of saying, yes, they do random stuff and it's cool.
And going along those lines, think about the way, evolutionary theory occurs with the stimulus and niches developed and all that kind of stuff. And then imagine that happens 1 million years in 5 seconds. And that's really what the aberrants are. They're just some offshoot on the tree of life that you're just getting randomly set upon.
Interesting.
So that's really, like the more sci-fi. That'd be the more sci-fi way of saying that.
So really, ultimately, we're defining the exact situation. If I'm a GM and I'm plucking your Chaos Storm from your world book, I'm like, oh, I like Chaos Storms. Stolen, like you do with like every, I don't know about you guys, every single supplement I ever get my hands on, I'm like, page 16, page 81. The rest of the book, garbage.
Giants using goblins and catapults. Yoink.
Yeah, exactly. So if somebody grabs your stuff, they really just need the basic guidelines on how do I use the things you have. And if I want your Chaos Storm in my game, what are the basics of what I can do with it? We know some of the effects it has on items, some of the ideas for what happens when you have magic in the wastes. I think the template add-on for monster making would be an excellent idea. Maybe we could just roll up a few of those just to see how it works when it's done. But yeah. Maybe Demons Paladin of the Lily Pad. Maybe I like your name. I don't know why I like your name. That's just a very appealing name to me. Maybe demons or gods could try and use the storms to enter the material world. Absolutely. Why not? It's, as Nate said, plot machine. So you could have an evil god funneling the chaos storms into the heavens so that he can warp the heavens to be like the underworld. I mean, you could just whatever you
Ragnarok. Want. Let's make Ragnarok happen. I'm going to take this chaos storm and I'm going to shove it into Mount Olympus. I know I mixed a couple different pantheons there, but whatever.
Yeah, it's okay. My favorite Star Wars movie is the one where Captain Kirk. So elementals could be reconfigured and changed into a new elemental, leaving them confused and angry. Anything that gets reconfigured and changed would probably be confused and angry. But yes.
Which is why it's really hard to talk with people in the chaos ways.
Exactly.
They're always a bit too surly for having just gained a squid head or something.
Voltaire, I like the idea of the storm will provide, but the only reason I like that idea is because I really like the idea of some group of individuals living in the storm and thinking of the chaos storms as some benevolent being,
like
helping.
Bountiful Garden of Eden style thing.
Yeah, where they're just like, the desert provides for us, and these great storms sweep through, and we have all kinds of stuff to hunt. I mean, these would be some incredibly hardy people if they just hunt whatever chimera pops up. So
I'm putting that actually in the Tribes of the Waste. That's something they say. Absolutely.
Nice. The storm will provide. You're crazy. How do we leave?
And that's why they're gods, the god of luck.
Oh, Kyle, good idea. Fiends exposed to a storm could be changed to celestials or vice versa. That would be cool to use. That would be amazing.
Oh, that could be a really nice plot there. Think about you've got a fiendish pact warlock, maybe with a little psychic twist to them. So maybe some kind of entity that a demonic entity.
They have to be a psionicist. They can't just be a warlock.
Maybe they've got maybe that's why it's either maybe it's birthed from the waste or whatever like that. But anyway, it wants to transform its being. So it's going to try and do something like either sacrifice celestials to the storm in this kind of ritual to make itself a higher being, like a celestial or something. So that could be a major plot thing going on in the waste. That could be like a 1st to 10th level thing going on as you defeat it.
I would think for me, I immediately come to the like plot mechanic side of things. And when you said a fiend turned into a celestial, I imagine a fiend being turned into celestial, which essentially is just this alignment change that is so thorough that it changes its physical being as well. But it remembers who it was and what it did in the past. And so it would go to the players maybe and be like, I need your help. I have to right all these wrongs. I did things that I can't cope with, Like that would be, right? Like the tortured soul pleading for help. I mean, yeah.
So Axoneer says, how does a group survive long enough in the chaos waste to become a tribe? They're mongrel men. and
Yeah,
they haven't survived in their original form, right?
Mm,
There you go.
yeah.
So I would say they become resistant to the chaoses, or they're nomadic, and
hmm
the larger, more consistent storms they can avoid readily because of their understanding of the waste rangers.
Stephen Blessing, he's just cracking out flavor text here. We cover ourselves in the sap of the shurgum tree, and it hardens in the howl of the psychic storm, forging our armor.
Yoink!
That's freaking sweet.
I like that.
I want to be one of these dudes, and well, I don't know what a shurgum tree is, but I'm gonna find one. I need super awesome armor.
It's a tree that was from the original forest of the Empire that's been turned into some kind of crystalline thing.
Yeah. Yes. Um.
Living
mm,
crystal tree.
Mr. L does bring up a really good idea, and there's something we haven't actually touched on that we should probably hit before we wrap up tonight. Cities grow around powerful psychic families that spend their time concentrating to provide a shield to the city. So, are there settlements or other like living arrangements or big groups of people uh, living near these areas? Especially given the fact that there could be some trade in the crystal that the thri-kreen or whatever the bug people are
Okay.
producing.
So let's say neighbors, or is that what we're going for?
Yeah, some kind of neighbor or I mean, especially if you were saying earlier, there are people that go out and try and collect some of the stuff that was deposited by the storm, or you know what I mean. So where do these people go back to? If we're talking like a tiny little shanty village, like a old west ghost town kind of thing, where there's only 16 people living there, or a bustling city, like what's nearby?
Okay, so to the east there is the woods of the wild elves,
Hmm.
the Great Forest, which
Okay.
is about 400 or 500 miles of forest. So it's kind of a big buffer because it any of the crazies things that get out of the chaos waste to the east are taken care of by the wild elves. It's part of they consider it part of their duty.
Okay.
Similar to like, elves in Lord of the Rings killing orcs.
Oh, pretzel bomb. That's a really interesting idea. You made me think of the Diablo 1 magic item naming convention, where it would be like fast, vicious mace of flame, you know? So Pretzel Bomb said, considering the randomness of the storm, maybe have creatures named after certain characteristics instead of specific creatures getting their own names. I really, really like the idea, especially if you're going to create a chimera engine.
Okay,
Naming
so
after
you might say if it's crystal, you might say stone goblin, or spined whatever,
and
like
we
that
could
kind of thing.
yeah we could I mean we don't have to go with like the AD&D spined winged what you know what I mean, but
Hmm.
we could do like crazy descriptive uh infused shadow goblin.
Got it.
What
Okay.
is that? What is that? But the infused could be a specific set of characteristics. You could be like, grab your goblin book. If you roll infused, this is the stuff that happens to the goblin. If you rolled shadow, this is the stuff that happens to the goblin. And we could do all kinds of stuff to pull from different planes, different elements. I mean, some of the elements are planes. I mean, you could do whatever you wanted. Um, oh, Axanar brings up an interesting point, and that would be something cool to explore. What if most of the mutations transformations are temporary? So I'm not stuck as a pack mule / human paladin for the rest of my life.
Well, you got spells like remove curse. You got cure disease. That stuff exists.
uh,
Lesser restoration, greater restoration,
hmm.
resurrection. That stuff could fix you, right?
Is there access to the Underdark or its own crystal or its own subterranean world? The Underdark, once again, is Forgotten Realms IP.
I think we have the beneath in our world.
The down there, the
The
beneath.
down there, under.
There's nothing as cool as Underdark. We're done.
Yeah.
There's no naming convention that's as awesome as Underdark.
No, I think the beneath is pretty cool.
The beneath.
Yeah.
All right. Different crystals reacting differently to different schools of magic. You guys have like a million ideas I'm trying to keep up right now. Elementals made up. Ferranorty on Twitch said, what about weirds, which are elementals made up of conflicting elements? That is an awesome idea.
Like frozen ice with being whipped up in a windstorm?
Well, just a fire water elemental. Not a steam elemental, which if you guys are familiar with like the guides to the planes or any of that old stuff, there were steam elementals in the subplanes.
Dust, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. What if it was literally like this screaming, in pain, nightmare fuel elemental that's half fire elemental, half water elemental, and rather than the steam being some elemental thing, it's like wounds on its body. Like it looks like it's in pain and unhappy, and it's probably going to take it out on you. Roll initiative. That could be really cool.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of stuff going on. I think I could do like 4 episodes on just this.
Well, that's the beauty of chat. And one of these days, I'm going to type too. I'll pretend to type. Does that help? The dark depths, the scary dark place. I think for nomadic mongrelmen or any being after being changed by the storm or being descended from someone that was changed by the storm, maybe they can smell the storms coming or somehow sense them coming.
Like storm sense?
The winds of change, call them the winds of change. I don't know if we can call them the winds of change. That's Games Workshop's IP. We gotta,
is that what they call the chaos storms? Is winds of change?
Literally, Tzeentch uses the winds of change and mutates people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Tzeentch is like the god of magic and manipulation and a bunch of other stuff. But yeah, he has the winds of change.
Winds of change. Yeah, I like it, but I mean, it doesn't feel like very strong IP. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like mushroom people. There's a certain level of.
James Leslie said we need someone to do shorthand at this point. We need, what is it, the typists, the
special shorthand
that they just sit in like the courtroom and they type a million miles a second. We need that to be. I can type pretty fast, but I don't think I can keep up with them.
Yeah, there's a lot to capture here. So what if if the Overdark is a bowl of rolling tunnels in the sky? Mr. L, I'm picking up what you're putting down. That's pretty cool.
Hunter Williams, a nomadic chief staring stoically into the distance. A storm is coming. Grab your things and get inside. We will attempt to protect you. And then a chimera has appeared. Grab your weapons. This is an amazing setting. We could do something with this. Halflings with extreme luck. It's just a bunch of halflings. Tassel feet, tassel foot.
Crystal tunnels in the sky.
I keep seeing Scarab people with crystallized husks combing the wastes to scavenge things to trade and salvage, but their chitin is now infused with crystal fragments to protect them. I think that's a good thing to be seeing. That's a good idea, James Leslie.
And I like the Scarab beetle. I think that could be a cool thing. Maybe just like
Fantasy Grounds.
Thinner.
Fantasy Grounds Colleges and Twitch. What's up, Fantasy Grounds?
Hey.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
You were going on the Scarab beetle idea.
Yeah, I'm liking them more and more, but maybe make them a little thinner so it's not like the turtle size black. I play a lot of video games, guys. There is a video game called Smite, and in Smite
they have a scarab beetle god. If you were still sitting in chat, I know you know who I'm talking about. You guys should Google it. The dude is insane looking, and he is essentially a scarab beetle person. But that character is insanely cool looking. You can go with something Kepri. Kepri is his name. And that could be a perspective, but they look very beetle-y. Like Kepri looks like a scarab beetle.
Yeah, we'll have to get, I think, more in depth on what to do about the creature
when we get to the critter creation on Thursday.
Yes, the critter creation, monster mashing.
Monster mash.
Thanks, Fantasy Ground College, for following.
Aw.
Okay, where am I? This is getting kind of out of hand. I'm all over.
It's okay. It's okay.
Panic.
You'll have time after when we're done with the stream. We have 10 more minutes. We'll just confuse you and overload you with information. Let me see how many different ideas I can get.
Okay, so I've got the wild elves in their forest, the great forest on the east side. I've got a sea to the south. So
the chaos storms are near the water.
Yeah. How do you think Krakens came here?
And we just got to do more cool stuff. I see pirates in my future. Maybe you have to roll some sort of save, and maybe it switches your stats around in the storm for an hour. Oh, that is a cool idea.
Oh yeah, like some kind of looking glass phenomenon where it's like, oh, now you're super tall and thin, and you've got less constitution, but your dex is amazing.
I need you to role play losing 9 intelligence. And by the way, you are not as bright as you used to be. You lose a lot of spell slots. A race of sea slugs that harvest kelp for the landlubbers. Yeah, we're in the chaos waste, so we're trying to imagine crazy things that could happen there, what the world around it is like. What is to the west of the chaos wastes? Just so we can get our mental image before we have to wrap.
All right, the west is the closest to Gryffindor. So the place where we play Ted's game and Dave's game, that is a couple, hundreds of miles away. Because there's Gryffindor, and then there's Dralic to the northeast, and then basically to the east of that, we haven't determined how long. But I would say how east, but maybe a couple weeks worth of travel. The Chaos Waste are there, so we kind of have a question mark on what's in between Dralic, which is closest to Gryffindor, and all the eastern land before you get to the first towers of the western side of the Chaos Wastes.
So that means we get to come up with all kinds of craziness we'd like to insert there.
Craziness, but not really, because it's less crazy because it's the normal world. So there could be a mountain. There could be a mountain range. There could be a sea.
There could
doesn't have to be land.
A monastic temple where Psionicists go to study, and their proximity to the Chaos Wastes lets them go in there and have like a Luke Skywalker in the swamp moment, so they can figure out who they are. Hey man, I can run with this. We can do something with it.
Okay, let's put mountains.
Yes.
On that side.
Monastic temples are always in the mountains.
Yeah, monastic temples in the mountains.
And this could be like a school of Psionicists, where they go to study.
Yes. And then they would traverse around the exterior. So basically, the most experienced Psionicists would be the ones that are on the easternmost side, because they travel the entire series of towers to get to where they're going to basically reside. But the western side can be where the Psionicists are trained.
The new Lamo level 1s. Get out of here, you level 1s. Are you done cleaning the floor? Man, get some XP already.
Yeah, go fight some chimeras.
Mark Christensen, Psionicist, Psionic Dream Quests. I like that. Psi monks and mystics, exactly. Exactly, FGC. That's exactly right. Oh, Sleepy Hendrickson said it would be really easy to switch character sheets at the tabletop due to body switching.
Yeah, there you go.
Kienata, hand Nate your character. No. Do it.
Do it.
No.
Shut up. This is how I'm gonna RP you changing your guy. Come on, give me the character sheet. Oh yeah. We talked about that. Lincoln, Psionic the Hedgehog.
Voltaire wants us to make this an all-nighter.
Oh,
I don't think we have.
Tempted.
I think we'd break Nate. Honestly, he's got 45 minutes of notes backed up already.
Okay, so let's call the mountains the Dream Speak, and that'll be like
the Dream Speak Mountains.
Yeah. It's either the Dreams Peaks or the Dream Speaks.
I say Dream Speaks. Maybe the mountains used to have a name that the Thri-kreen gave them, but then the Thri-kreen got wiped out.
Yeah. It's in Kreen scratch someplace. Who cares about that?
Who cares about the cultural significance of those people?
So it's the Dreams Peaks or the Dream Speaks.
What do you think, guys? Dream Peaks or Dream Speaks Mountains?
Dreams Peaks or Dream Speaks.
Oh, there was an extra S in there.
Yeah.
I missed the S.
That's okay. I think it's both of them at the same time.
Nate's kids would start a revolution.
Yes, and they'd easily wrangle my wife in. That's for sure, Fragginator.
FGC said a hidden portal to the Sky Temple. Birdmen taking people up to the Sky Temple high above. There's so much cool stuff you could do with this. There's so much stuff.
All right, to the north. We all know what's going to be in the north.
Robert Hobbs just wants total chaos. He said use both names.
Credgefor's Belt.
Oh yeah, Credgefor's Belt. I'm heading on out to Credgefor's Belt today. I got to take my mule out there. We're going to walk around them icy wastes. Hit some creepy Cthulhu seals in the head with my club. Delicious. You ever fried them up?
Far from Wormstone, because I want Wormstone to exist still.
Yeah.
Yes. Cruncher's Belt is to the north of it, and it's far from Wormstone for survivability purposes.
We didn't get any decisions on Dreams Peaks or Dream Speaks. A couple votes for each. If you had it Dream Speaks Mountains, then you could have the psionic energies whisper things into characters' minds and enhance mind abilities or induce nightmares. So you could have like some inkling of far-reaching effects. That would also, I mean, if you want to train people to fight fires, you burn something, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to train psionicists,
just a little mountains
of madness. Horrors.
Yeah. Throw nasty dreams at them.
Exactly.
They're gonna see their nightmares realized in the chaos waste. So.
And then fight Vader with a lightsaber and chop his head off, and
then realize that it's you. There is darkness in you.
It depends, Fragginator. It says it depends on who says it. Just make it one word, leave it ambiguous. I like ambiguous naming conventions with stuff like that.
Yep. I think I'm going to keep it as there, and people can make their choices.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little Mountains of Madness reference there. So.
Exactly. Haunting the PCs. Yeah, James Leslie, I like to terrorize the PCs to some degree. But I've seen a few adventures, even written adventures, where they kind of take away the player's sense of agency when they terrorize the players, and I'm not into that at all. So,
Wilder Smith says, "Have the wild elves say one, and the Kreens say the other."
I like that a lot.
Yes, that'd be nice.
disagreements on pronunciation. That's not how you say it, bug. Don't call me a bug.
Oh, okay. So the thri-kreen, or whichever creature is going to take over,
Yeah.
they do definitely have kind of they have an elf mentality to them in the sense that they think they're their master race. So back in the far distant past of their species, they didn't really see a difference between eating a cow and eating an elf. So they have these things called elf hunts.
Oh.
But the elf hunts now are like the let's all get along version. They call them elf hunts, but what they actually do is hunt for a special mushroom that they call elf of the woods. Tastes like chicken. And
I imagine there's no way the elves are gonna forget that. Like
no, they don't.
Yeah, when the elves see the thri-kreen, they're just like, that dude's dead. He's dead.
Well, okay, so it's like a peace thing. It happened tens of thousands of years ago, probably, or thousands upon thousands of years ago, which is still not that long for an elf that lives 500-600 years. But it's happened long enough ago. It would be like a war, like, oh, you remember that old war that happened 300 years ago? Well, maybe we shouldn't try and restart it. So the current iteration of the thri-kreen, they go on elf hunts, but what they're hunting for are these mushrooms that they say taste like elf, and that's kind of their peace substitute for actually going and hunting elves in the woods and eating them.
You think you're a smart prawn, huh? You think I tried to give you a piece of candy, like District 9 all over? Yeah.
Yeah, Hunter and Williams. Yes, instead of taste like chicken, they say taste like elf, and that's why it's like a fill-in substitute. It's a symbolic as well as like sensation substitute for consuming elf flesh.
Robert Hobbs. Yeah, this is the same world as I almost called it the Kuiper Belt, the Kredgefers Belt.
The belt.
Yes, the belt. Hit it out the Kredgefers Belt. Got to tie up my mule.
Fraginator, have the elves unleash their secret weapon, a giant bug assault.
I imagine there's at least one elf who's like, well, that's fine. Thri-kreen tastes like crab.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, there's that one guy who ate a thri-kreen. Now nobody will let him forget. Thri-kreen are ants, and ants speak with pheromones. So maybe they thought elves were only animals for a long time because they couldn't talk.
Well, that would be like if you communicate with psychic powers and clicking, and you're like, nothing else can speak to us. Well, as humans, we say, well, it's intelligent enough that it can understand our language, so it's one step up from a regular animal. But if an animal could actually speak our language, we'd be like, oh, okay, they're almost us. So it's kind of, good point. It's that mentality. And they're already alien in mindset. Every mammalian creatures don't look like them. So if you were to judge things closest to you, it's like it's like being a pescatarian, someone who's cool with eating fish but won't eat a cow. Or like a bunny or something. Like I won't eat, like that kind of thing. I won't eat this, this, and this because it's mammalian. But a lobster's totally fine. That kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Cuddle scarabs.
We're not Cthulhuing everything in the world. We have to have limitations, which is why when we go back to Kredgefers Belt, we're probably going to make more Cthulhu creatures, because why not? Kill it with fire. Yeah, the thri-kreen said that about the elves. That's what happened.
Yes, because it tastes best like that.
All right. So what did we get done tonight? There's so much to cover.
All right, we're going to do a quick recap.
Yeah. Read the notes.
So we've got the Chaos Wage, which is a destroyed empire. The protection from the storm or directing them. So we could have lightning-type crystal formations or items that allowed you to have resistance or protection from the storms. And there'd be some kind of supervillain-esque person trying to harness the storms. Maybe a demigod, maybe a demon trying to transform itself into something that's trying to harness the storms for things. We've got the Tower or Claw of the Bug People. It's made from crystalline spit. The Storms of Chaos, where weird things happen when chaos is involved. So you get aberrant creatures, chimera, probably psionic-based chimeric creatures. We're talking about template add-ons and for monster making. So we could like adding psychic attacks, adding strange powers, adding aberrant forms, shape changers, golems, that kind of thing. So basically take a squirrel, take a lizard, take whatever, make it, it's a shadow squirrel or it's a ravenous stone lizard.
I just want ravenous shadow squirrels.
So
good there.
All right, you could be a thing. So mapping the waste, the wastes are about 1,000 miles across. So about 1,000 miles, which is considered the border scrublands, and about halfway through, 100 miles as a border ring, and it's kind of like a ringed area. It's not a perfect circle, but it's like egg shaped. And at 50 miles in to the scrubland is the towers that protect the world from the madness. So in the waste, there's going to be some kind of madness, kind of like exhaustion, but storm based. And so like food and events could give you like eating or drinking things that have been affected by the chaos. Might affect your sanity level, and you could have it like tiered out like exhaustion, where at 6 you're either catatonic and just staring off, you're driven mad and trying to kill yourself, kill other people or whatever, or like, ooh, a monster, it's like a cave that's warm, that whatever kind of thing.
That's not a cave.
It's not a cave. Culture, there's the elf of the woods and the elf hunt. So the elves were hunted for a long time because they're like the favorite food that were considered like, cows are considered smart, so elves are considered smart to these bug people. And then they eventually ended the problem when they came to an understanding, because the first psionic elves came about and communicated with them. So I'll have to write more about that, but that is for some other time. And now they do the elf hunt, and it's a symbolic, but as well as sensation hunt, because they found a mushroom that grows called elf of the woods, and they do mushroom. Basically, the mushroom forage is the elf hunt now, which the elves still don't like. That they require it is called the elf hunt, and the elves hate that.
All right, answer honestly. If someone handed you some fresh boiled thri-kreen and garlic butter, would you eat it?
Oh, garlic butter? Yum, yum, yum.
Oh, God, there's so much
tell
meat.
Me it's a gigantuan crab or something. It's a new type of crab they found.
It's spider crab. Don't worry about it, mate. We've got more out back. Just have a bite. It's delicious.
Ooh, this does taste just like crab. So there's a tribe in the waste, aberrant humans that live happily in the waste, or live happily for somebody living in the waste for generations. They've got a bit of weird resistance to the chaos, and they could be mongrel men. So maybe they're all chaotic, chimeric beings like mongrel men, or maybe they're more stabilized but have a aberrant look to them. They say things such as the storm will provide, and we cover ourselves in the sap. I like this thing, kind of like the linseed oil of like a crystal tree that like weeps the sap oil, and then you can like harden it on yourself to make different armor or like crafting of things. I think that's a cool idea. So flora and fauna.
Huh? Did you write down the quote he said?
Yeah. Flora and fauna. There are some normal creatures, but they're all twisted in some way or another. So sandstorm beast, which is like a change on the blizzard beast. And like we said, with adding templates, adding psionic things to it, that kind of stuff. Effects on item, metal deteriorates, radiation style like effects. You could lose your hair, different things like that. Most to least resistance, we've got bioformed crystal, like the saliva stuff. We've got crystal, we've got psionicist, people, dead organics, once living objects like leather, wood, and bone, and then metal. And I think metal would be joined by glass, actually, because glass just doesn't...
It's your world. You can just decide.
Yeah, whatever. So magic in the waste, everyone rolls for wild surges when they use magic as per wild mage. Wild mages would probably roll double or an increased magnitude, like maybe 3 or 4 times what the regular wild surges, because they're wild magic people. Might as well happen way more than the rest of the people. Strange phenomenon, you've got past people appearing from the storms, psionic apparitions manifest, dreams, demonic rifts, crystal tunnels floating in the sky, that kind of stuff. Crazy things. For neighbors, they've got the wild elves to the east is the Great Forest, which is basically like wood elves, but they're nomadic, and they roam the forest and kill any aberrants they see. And every once in a while, they'll escort the thri-kreen as they go on their hunt for the elves, which is the elf of the woods, the mushroom. Merchants and travelers pay them in trade goods for their services. They are nomadic within the forest. South side is the sea where krakens are born and abelisks have a lounge.
Mm-hmm.
West, we've got the Psi monastic temple in the mountains, the Dreams Peaks, or the Dream Caps, or Dream Speaks, whatever. And to the north, we've got Crutchford's Belt, but it's far from Wormston because I want that place to live, not get killed by the Chaos Waste things.
Sold.
So, bam, that is it. That is the Chaos Waste starter pack there. Whoa, man, that was a lot of stuff, and I'm gonna have to comb through the video again just to catch up on some of the concepts that I might have skipped. So, anything to add to that?
Thursday, bug people.
Yes, Thursday we gotta do the bug people and whatever Monster Mash stuff that will probably be nightmare fuel for what happened in the Chaos Waste.
Exactly. We could just name the segment Nightmare Fuel.
Maybe we can crank out the template editions. I can do a little bit of research ahead of time and kind of bring you guys and gals an idea of where I'm looking for the template editions.
Okay. So the Thursday stream is the same bat time, the same bat place.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got.
9 to 11, wherever Nerdarchy can be found, where we're streaming. Yep, so that's it. So until next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.